Okay, hi everybody. Thanks very much for joining this presentation today. My name is Samuel Macalister. I work for Autodesk and I'm at the CAG Group offices in Sydney, Australia. And we're going to be doing a presentation on some of the visualization applications across the suites. This is going to be the 3ds Max design tools that sit within the building design suites, the infrastructure suites, and the plant suites. My background is architecture and I'm responsible for building information across Australia and New Zealand. Okay. So the focus is going to be on 3ds Max design, and this is because it sits in a number of our suites. So in the building design suites, we have it in the premium and ultimate suites. Likewise, we have it in the infrastructure and the plant design suites. The importance of having an application like 3ds Max Design is the ability to be able to generate or win new work. When I was in industry working in the UK, we used this a great deal to try and generate or bid or win new work. It was also an excellent tool to communicate various design functions. So I use this in competitions to do 3D photorealistic cross-sections of buildings to communicate what was going on inside of that design. It's also a great tool for communicating things like materials. So if you're looking at several design options, you can move your models into the 3ds Max design environment and drum up a number of different material options without having to go back into your BIM application and then recreate different types of families. Also in the interior space, materials are incredibly important, but you can work with IES data in 3ds Max Design. So if you're creating detailed interiors and you want to see how the illuminance functions within a certain type of space with certain types of materials, fittings and finishes, you can bring in IES data and use that photometric information in the 3ds Max Design environment. It's a great tool to communicate how natural lighting or lighting environments work with the materials in different locations. This is one I did in London. London's a very dark and grey place. And be able to position your building within a certain type of lighting environment, you can tell more realistically how those materials are going to look. Some of our users out there are doing some incredible renderings. This is a project done by Farron and Hay Architects in New Zealand. It was visualized by Bertrand Benoit. This is a loft in New York. The visualizations are more compelling than the actual photographs. These are 3D visualizations created in 3ds Max Design, rendered in V-Ray. And you can see the level of detail that this user's created, including things like bespoke lighting, shopping bags, and even the fire sprinklers running through the exposed ceiling. It's not only just for buildings. We have a number of retail customers using it to create breads or bakery goods. And this is the level of detail you can get down to in Max. So you can do these large, say, civil or infrastructure projects, but you can also go down to this finite detail and produce these compelling images. For those of you who have moved onto the 2014 suites in the new version of Revit, we've actually done a new data set, and these are the visuals of linking that data set through in 3ds Max Design. So you can produce much more compelling, more emotive visuals using this tool, and also create things like more detailed grass, different types of ambient lighting, and you can add more vehicles and external daylighting simulations. One of the tools that you might not be familiar with is the daylighting analysis tool. This is an American LEED accredited lighting tool that allows you to link your Revit model into a 3ds Max design environment and set up a number of light meters to be able to record the daylight illuminance coming into that space. So what we have here is a plane at each intersection of those arrows. It records illuminance and gives you a numerical output and a pseudo color overlay. So within Max you have a lighting analysis assistant that allows you to quickly create these light recording environments, and you can actually use this information to work out whether your internal space is receiving the amount of lighting that it needs to make it functional. So this is just another tool within 3ds Max Design which you can use within your workflows. And of course with this data you can actually export it out as a CSV file. In addition to this, you can run a render with the numerical overlay with the colors. So you can also create your compelling visualizations but show the numerical data showing where your bright and dark points are in that design. If you want to know more about some of the tools in 3ds Max Design for more advanced lighting simulation, one of our users, or one of our internal guys from our Toronto office, his name is Pierre Felix Brenton. He has some in-depth details on his blog site, and it talks more about detailed photometric data and explains some of the workflows in more depth on how to actually use your tools going from your Revit environment or your AutoCAD environment into 3ds Max Design, and how to get the results that you need for doing daylight analysis. So what I've got on the screen here, for those of you who haven't seen this, is the workflow of taking your Revit or DWG files into a 3ds Max Design environment. In this case, I'm working from Revit. So what it does is it converts it to what's called an FBX file, and this holds the geometry, the materials, and the lighting. So whether it be your day lighting from your sun or the IES data or the photometric data from your light fittings, all of this data goes through into a 3ds Max Design environment. What you can also do when you set it up is combine the entities in your model by materials or Revit categories or Revit family types. So depending on how you want to use that data in the Max environment, you've got the ability to customize that information before you export it out as an FBX and bring it into 3ds Max Design. The great thing about this tool is that it works like a reference link. So you can reference your Max file, your Revit file, into the Max environment, and then if there's a change within the original authoring tool, whether it be a Revit or AutoCAD based application, you can manage those links and reload that data back in. So for the person working in the visualization environment, when you bring up your Manage Links dialog box, there's a little red flag that tells you that the project design's changed. So you can still be adjusting maybe some of the light or some of the materials within your Max environment, but maybe the user in the Revit or DWG environment has moved a wall from A to B. You can reload that in, and your texture and lighting settings that you've set up within the Max environment will still hold. And then these are some of the basic renders you can get out very quickly. For those of you familiar with our 2012 release, we had the iRay rendering engine. This is a point and shoot tool which allows you to get out very quick renders without having to learn anything about complex lighting engines. This is a quick internal render, a linked file with some more detailed 3ds Max polygon models, say for fittings and finishes, and of course your IES data. And this is iRay as well. Some of the new features within 3ds Max Design now is the ability to more accurately locate your buildings within a photo. So this is what we call our photo montaging. So we've got some good online videos showing you more in-depth picks and clicks on how to do this. But for those of you who need to position your building within a photo environment, there's been some great improvements within the 2014 release. even when you get into doing your large projects, taking it out from Revit into 3ds Max Design, the rendering times greatly improve. To run a basic rendering in Revit of this view here of a large healthcare project, this is the type of result that I get. It's okay, we could take it into Photoshop, maybe do some adjustments, but it's very flat. It takes a long time. The rendering engine's okay in Revit, but it's not great for doing high-end visuals. We can link the same data set into 3ds Max Design using the iRay rendering engine and get this type of result within about 5 minutes. Some of the other tools that exist within 3ds Max Design as opposed to Revit, round edge material tools. So Revit and AutoCAD applications work more with information modeling, so you don't need to, or you don't want to, add too much detail to your models because it can slow it down, especially on a very large healthcare or university or civil project. What you can do though to make your visuals look more detailed or more photoreal is you can use the materials in Max to create round edges. So instead of chamfering or filleting your detailed models in the Revit environment and linking through to Max, there's a very powerful tool within 3ds Max Design where the materials create this effect in the visuals. And you can see this with the corner detail of this hospital bed. Also, if you want to create that photoreal effect, there's a tool called depth of field. So within the cameras in 3ds Max Design, you can adjust your depth of field. So whether you want to be focusing on something that's detailed in the foreground or something that's detailed in the background, the 3ds Max Design cameras allow you to set this focal length. This is a basic model linked from Revit into 3ds Max Design, and this is using the iRay rendering engine. So you can see here in the foreground I've got my lamp with IES data. I've got natural daylighting coming through into the single bed ward space here, and all I'm using is the iRay rendering engine. And this is point and shoot. So for those of you who are completely new to 3ds Max Design, you have it in your suite but you don't know much about rendering engines, there's this great tool that allows you to basically point and shoot and get some pretty decent output using the iRay rendering engine. For those of you who have been using Max for a while or want to go more advanced, there are some very powerful tools that allow you to do things like advanced lighting or vegetation. So this is a snapshot from a user called Alex Roman who uses what's called proxies and displacement to create photorealistic trees and grass. So we look at a snapshot of the wireframe of this model. You can see that the building or this house, which is a retreat in the forest in Japan, you can see there's a bit of detail in the house, but the way that the trees and the grass and the leaves are displayed are completely different. It's not geometry. So the trees use a very powerful tool called Proxies, which allow you to do thousands and thousands of leaves, but it saves the proxy in a certain file, and then you can get these photorealistic images. The grass uses a tool called Displacement, so it's a flat surface, but the materials create the effect of the grass. So instead of having to model all this geometry, 3ds Max Design allows you to do this. So you don't need to take a still image, take it into Photoshop, spend days working on Photoshop to get these type of images. You can do it all within the powerful tools within the 3ds Max Design environment. So this is another snapshot of the trees. You can see on the left the geometry exists for the branches and the trunk, but the leaves are actually what's called proxy, which look partially like a point cloud. So this is heavy data, but it displays in a certain way and it speeds up your workflows. So you can scatter these trees all around the 3ds Max Design environment and it's not going to lock down your model in the same way that heavy geometry would. For those of you who spend time making families, what we're starting to see is a huge amount of manufacturers providing us with detailed families the building information modeling workflows. So in one case, if we look at Herman Miller, they provide things like healthcare, nurses stations, and other equipment that would be used in medical and clinical spaces. So you can take these detailed Revit components, and with a combination of more detailed characters which you can purchase from Rocketbox, you can link both of this information into a 3ds Max design environment and use it for simulations and animations. This is just a screenshot of 3ds Max Design which isn't even rendered. So this is the Herman Miller Revit family linked through into Max, and the Rocketbox people. Because we're running this on a webinar, I can't play this in real time because of the lag, but you can actually get these sorts of images to communicate animations without having to commit to renders. 3ds Max Design has a thing called a nitrous accelerated graphics core, which allows you to see how that light and how those materials are going to perform more accurately in real time before you commit to doing a render. We have an online video from Alex Roman. He's called The Third and the Seventh, and he's done some stunning visualizations that look like photorealistic movies. The great thing about using this as a tool, it's not just creating a visualization to do an animation for the purpose of flying around a building. It actually helps designers or people who want to communicate a certain function in their model. It helps them to communicate the ideas and the themes behind that design. What customers expect these days are high-end animations and photorealistic visuals. They've seen all the stuff in Avatar and Star Wars, and now they expect us to be able to do this as part of the presentation. So what 3ds Max Design allows you to do is to create these powerful, compelling visualizations and animations to win work and to communicate design ideas and themes to your customers. Okay, I just want to move on to plant now and just explain the workflow of taking DWG data into the 3ds Max environment. So like Revit converts it into an FBX file, 3ds Max Design also understands DWG data. So all you need to do from the plant environment, which is based on an AutoCAD platform, you can export as a DWG and bring this information into the 3ds Max Design environment. And just like Revit with linking a 3D an FBX file, you can do the same thing. You can link that DWG data from that plant data set into the 3ds Max Design environment and then reuse those links to link any information that may have changed during the design workflow. One of the tools that exists for the DWG environment is the ability to fine-tune some of the data. So if you're working with a lot of curves and pipes, heavy files, you can actually go into the geometry options and fine-tune some of this information before you bring it into the 3ds Max Design environment. At the end of the day, it is a visualization tool and it's all about the output. So you don't need to bring in every single nut and bolt and have heavy faceted objects. So with this tool, if you're bringing in the DWG data, you can fine-tune it, and it's just going to help you with your productivity to get the output you need to communicate that design idea. Also, when you bring in DWG data and you need to assign materials to those components, the layers and the objects within that DWG linked file from plant can be read in 3ds Max Design. So for those of you using Revit, you can bring in your Revit families or your Revit components, and you can bring up this select from scene dialog. You can select the list and instantly apply all the materials to all those components in that list. So same thing in plant, all those layers, all that DWG data is recognized in the 3ds Max Design environment, and you can quickly and effectively apply materials that you need to get your visualization out. These are some snapshots from an animation of a oil and gas plant. So even if you're not an expert, you can use some of the default settings within 3ds Max Design. You can put on your draft or medium or high settings, use some of the standard lights, and you can get some basic animated results like the ones you're seeing on screen here. So it's very easy, and it can become very intuitive for what you need to do to bring this information through and create these basic animations like you're seeing from the still screenshots. Okay, just want to touch on some stuff to do with Civil View. So within 3ds Max Design, you can get an add-in for Civil 3D users, and this is called Civil View. So I'm just going to take you over some of the steps where you can export from Civil 3D, configure some of the settings in Max Design, use some of the tools to actually drape images over topographical surfaces, show you some of the tools that will help you gain confidence in using the Civil 3D workflow in 3ds Max Design, and show you how you can create Civil View items like trees and cars, and then how to take it out and create images and videos. So like exporting from your Revit or plant environment, Civil 3D has a certain file type. This is the VSP 3D file type. So you export the Civil View export files, and then you're able to import these in the 3ds Max Design environment. So all your data, like your corridors, your sites, and your surfaces, gets taken out in the right file format to be read within the Civil View tool within 3ds Max Design. So once you have this installation in your 3ds Max Design, up in the ribbon tab, you have the drop down and you've got the Civil View tools. So from here, you can go and bring in your import from the export that you took out of your Civil 3D application. And there's a number of tools here that allow you to add things like your traffic, your road markings and rail. All these tools are very easy to use, and you can customize the styles that you need for the output in your project. So this is the input panel and all the information that's coming through. So you can see here all the different corridors that you've created within your civil application are being read natively in 3ds Max Design. So again, like plant with the DWG data and Revit with the family data, again, 3ds Max Design interprets this information, and you're able to easily manipulate that information again in 3ds Max Design. So things like your point groups and your surfaces, your alignments and your corridors, all this information comes through, and it can be used in the Civil 3D workflow. So these are one of the simple tools where you can actually drape your photographic images over the topography in your model. So you can bring in all this data, and then you can get your aerial information and place this over the model. So you don't need to go and manually texture everything or do things in 3ds Max Design. You can pick up these surfaces and use the Civil View Explorer tool to drape imagery over those surfaces. You can see here you can choose the bitmap, and you can place it to match the topographical information in that 3ds Max Design environment. And once you're actually in the environment for 3ds Max Design, you're going to gain a lot of confidence because it's quite easy and intuitive to navigate around. You've got these 4 window panes here where you can start to see all the different views simultaneously, and it's very easy to move your cameras around, find the views that you want. You can set up a number of quick keys and hotkeys to allow you to move between the interfaces and create the commands you need to do to adjust your models for the output that you want. So in this case, we can see things like our draped imagery over that surface, the roads. We've brought in some of the tools for the pre-rigged animated cars, and then how they follow the road markings within that infrastructure design project. So the great thing here within the civil view environment is it has all the cars rigged and ready to go. So you don't need to be an expert. So for those of you who are doing this, say, in the architecture scene where you want to add landscaping or you want to add cars, you can actually get the civil view plugin, and you can start to use these tools. So you don't need to create this information yourself. It's got all this data embedded within the plugin, and the trees and the cars and everything's all ready to go. If you want to go a little bit further, of course, you can bring in cars. You can purchase more detailed vehicles from websites like Evermotion, and you can add lighting, and you can add formulas to drive the wheels and do different turning circles. So there's the option to do the basic stuff, but there is the option to do more advanced animation with rigging detailed vehicles in special ways to make them interact with the environment. Also, when we talk about trees, the Civil View tool creates two planes to give you trees that look great in your output animations. But if you want to go a little bit further, you can go to websites like Autodesk Seek and go to the free 3D trees and download more detailed geometry trees if you want to do things like animate them. What I've got here is a screenshot of a tree that I've animated using the noise modifier, and I can simulate wind blowing through the leaves in the trees using some of these simple tricks. So the great thing here within your Civil 3D environment is you're going to be able to communicate quickly your design intent. You're going to be able to show it to a lot more stakeholders, and it's going to give you a lot more visual clarity. So these things, when you come to run your animations using the default settings, all the cars, the wheels on the cars can be pre-rigged for you. It's ready to go, and you're going to be able to communicate nice animations to a number of customers or a number of stakeholders who need to understand and get more clarity what's involved in that design project. One of the tools that came out last year in Autodesk Labs was Project Geppetto. So in the 2014 release, we've now actually included this as a tool. So when we drop down our ribbon application up the top here, we can create a crowd of people or a flow of people. We can position them in a group to stand idly, or we can tell them to move between A and B and crossover paths. So this has been used again on the larger scale projects. Maybe you're doing master planning, or you might be doing this in the civil space. But you can bring and place thousands of people in your models, and they'll follow those paths. It's a basic point-and-shoot application that allows you to populate it with people within your design context. So like the Civil View cars, they're rigged and ready to go, simple, easy, and intuitive to use. For those users who want to look at more advanced tools, we actually have tools that allow you to do particle effects. So again, if you're working in a design where you might have water features and you don't know how to animate water features, you can download these pre-rigged particle presets from our Autodesk Area website. So if you go to Autodesk Area, there's a blog here from Alan McKay, and they have 100 free particle presets that you can download for free, and there's a tutorial down here that takes you through the workflow of placing this information, locking it into your 3ds Max design, and then you can quickly get up to speed to use these presets to create more advanced and compelling animations to communicate your design intents. Okay, so for those of you who don't have 3ds Max Design now, you can actually download a 33-day trial, or you can ask your IT guys to give you access to it because it comes within the Building Design Suite Premiums and Ultimates. If you need specialist training, please talk to CAD Group. They've got some excellent in-house experts who can provide you with more detailed training to take you through some of the steps that I've shown you today in this webinar. And please keep up to date with some of the benefits that you get within the building design suites. Most of our customers are using subscription, and every time we do new releases or we provide updates and extensions, you can go and log on using your Autodesk username and password and download a number of different plugins and enhancements with your subscription account. So please make sure you check this out and just make sure that you can get all these different add-ins and plugins to help you with your workflows. If anybody has any questions, we can open this up to the Q&A part of the webinar and the dialog box. If you have to go, if you push for time, my email address is at the top of the screen. And I also have a Behance portfolio, so it displays some of the projects that I've done in the past. So if any of you are interested in some of these workflows or even want to download some of these data sets, I'd be happy to share them with you. So please take notes and feel free to get in contact with me. So any Q&A, please type any questions into the question section. If the question section isn't working, you can also just type it into the chat section of the dialog box as well. Okay. So we don't seem to have any questions, so I'm presuming I've done my job reasonably well. If you do have any further questions, or if you go and look at some of these features and you have any questions about some of the picks and clicks, some of the workflows, please feel free to drop me an email or reach out to some of the experts at CAD Group, and we'll be happy to support you with some of these tools that you have within the building design suites. Oh, hang on. We do have a question. Okay, so bear with me. Apologies, we do have questions. So we've got 3 questions here. I'm just going to read them out. So number 1, will a copy of this presentation be made available? Yes, we're recording this, and Raj will get a copy of it and he'll distribute it to the people who have been on this webinar and for those who haven't had time to attend. Next question, do you think the animator people from Project Geppetto can replace the third parties for animated people? Yes, it can to a point. So the people in Project Geppetto are great for like doing large scenes where you're viewing them from a distance. So they're pre-rigged and they're texture mapped, and you can get some pretty good results. You can have them stand idly and they're automatically sort of move in an intuitive way. They'll follow paths. If the paths cross, they'll cross into different paths. You can get some great results. However, if you want to go into more detailed character animation, I would recommend an application like Rocketbox. So you can buy pre-rigged people, and they come with about 100 different presets, and they're highly detailed. So you will get some much better results if you're doing more detailed interiors or working with things like ergonomics. Okay, so next question for Peter Harris. For a first-time user of 3ds Max Design, where would be a good place to start? I would recommend just checking out some of our basic YouTube online tutorials. We've got the Autodesk YouTube channel, or CAD Group also have a channel and some stuff online as well. The quickest thing to do is to work with the presets. So when you're going from Revit into 3ds Max Design, if you've got all the applications installed, just use the presets. It will load up the model with the right settings you need, and then when you go to render in 3ds Max Design, there is a number of presets as well, which allow you to get the lighting and the rendering settings out. I also see another note from Peter Harris, question mark. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so start with the presets, and then if you need more advanced support, CAD Group has some technical specialists who can take you into that sort of level of detail. Okay, so next question. So hi Sam, can you modify the path of the temp file that saves the FBX transferring data to 3ds Max? Yeah, you can. So you can actually just export out that FBX data and place it within the FBX file within your 3ds Max project files. So it can all be configured. You just need to configure it to work with what's best for your network, or if you're on a standalone, where you need to locate on your machine to get the best processing power out of those data sets. If you do have any questions on some recommendations for that, just feel free to drop me a note. Okay, so Adeline, thanks for the presentation. If you could please send a sum up of the new tools by email. Yep, sure, that's not a problem, on 2014. Okay, so drop me an email and I will send you a copy of all of the new tools for 3ds Max Design 2014. Okay, question on V-Ray. Would you recommend buying V-Ray, or can the default rendering engine in 3ds Max, is it good enough? Okay, so I've used Scanline Render, iRay, Mental Ray, and V-Ray, and they're all good for doing certain types of features and functions. V-Ray is the preferred industry standard. It has some very powerful customized tools that allow you to do things like blades of grass and proxies. You can still do this within the default rendering engines in 3ds Max Design, but V-Ray, it's a very powerful rendering engine, and I would, if I was back in the industry, I would probably be back using V-Ray to complement 3ds Max Design. Okay. Okay. So finally, an answer to that question. Yeah. They're all good tools, but V-Ray is developed by a third party, and they put all of their focus into developing a great rendering engine that allows you to really customize and go the extra mile. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here. If you do have any further questions, please email me. Please check out the Behance portfolio if you've got any questions. If you see anything you like in there and want to know how to do it, just drop me a note. And Raj here at CAD Group will make this recording available for you all and for those staff who weren't able to make it today. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for your questions, and thank you very much for your time. We're going to end the webinar now. Thank you.